We do have a voting member, CIO Lawrence Ryle, and we have our ex officio member, Rick Miera, another longtime supporter of the rail yards over the years and former representative, as you know, for this area. Can we pull down that pop-up? Yeah. And why don't we have the rest of you introduce yourselves, starting with Keith.
Well, good morning, everybody. Keith Romero, President and Chair of the Barelas Community Coalition, the Community Economic Development Organization of the neighborhood. Thanks.
Courtney?
I just represent.
I'm Courtney Bell. I'm the Secretary of the Barelas Neighborhood Association.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Margarita?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Margarita Archiveke, and I am assistant to Commissioner Quesada.
Oh, great. Thanks for being here. And Max?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Max Gruner. I'm the Director for Economic Development for the City of Albuquerque. Glad to be here.
Welcome to your first Rail Yards Advisory Board meeting.
And I'm thrilled.
Well, it is one of the most enjoyable committees that I've had the pleasure of serving on. And then Raul?
Hi, guys. My name is Raul Miramontes. I am a longtime San Jose resident on the South Broadway side, and now I am finally building something for my kids on 825 Broadway. So,
Great. Thanks for being here, Raul. And then we'll go around the horn here, starting with Representative Garcia.
Buenos días, Dios. Garcia, House District 14.
Isaac Benton, City Council District 2.
Ed Adams, City of Albuquerque Rail Yards Project.
Eddie Garcia, South Broadway Division.
Dorothy Chavez, representative from the Barelas Neighborhood Association.
Hi, I'm Lipa Freed, president of the Wheels Museum.
And Jerry Ortiz Pino, State Senator for District 12.
All right. Great to have everyone here this morning. We'll move straight to approval of our last minutes, which are we had in the packet. Is there a motion for approval?
Move to adopt.
I second.
A motion and a second from Dorothy. All those in favor say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? Anyone on the screen opposed? I don't think so. Mr. Ryle?
I'm good.
You gave a thumbs up. All right, that's approved.
Councilor Benton, Jay Remby, just letting you know I'm on here if you.
Oh, Jay, okay, sorry.
No worries. No worries.
Yeah, I guess it didn't pop up if you don't have your, whatever it is, but we have to remember that you're here. Jay is our representative from the Urban Land Institute, which is one of the voting members of the board. And so we'll go straight to a rail yards master plan update. And we have Petra Morris here, who worked with us on this. And we may have someone from the consultant with us, or maybe not. But Petra, you want to lead us off on that?
The railroad master plan, the amendments that you guys recommended at the meeting in January were incorporated into the documents, and then the bill was introduced in January, and it's being referred to the Environmental Planning Commission. It will have its first hearing with the Environmental Planning Commission on April 20th. So that's a Thursday morning, and those meetings starts at 8:30. I believe the Planning Commission is.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If I might interrupt, it's a little bit hard to hear Petra.
Can you sit up here,
Yeah,
Petra?
I can't follow her either.
Why don't you just
Yeah.
repeat all of that? You can sit,
right here.
sit by the mic
Yeah,
here,
right here.
somewhere close.
Yeah, right by the mic.
There you go. Okay, sorry about that. So after the last meeting in January, the amendments recommended by the Rail Yards Advisory Board were incorporated into the documents. We produced a clean version of the document per your recommendations. So where we had red underlined text that went in as new text, where we had text that was struck through, that was removed. all the illustrations that had big X's on them before have been removed. So that clean version was introduced with the resolution adopting the master plan. That has been referred to the Environmental Planning Commission. I've just blanked on what the bill number is. It's R23 something. I'll look it up for Council Benson to tell you guys before the end of the meeting. That will be in front of the Planning Commission on April 20th. They start their meetings at 8:30 in the morning and they have their meetings via Zoom. The staff report will go out a week beforehand. That's our next step.
Thank you. All right, next on our agenda, we do have the report from the administration on the New Mexico Media Academy at the rail yards, and I think we'll go to Ed Adams and Lawrence on that.
Good morning, members of the committee. And it's good to see all of you representatives. It's always nice, senators. Always good to see you guys. Thank you for your last 60 days of hard work in Santa Fe. On behalf of the mayor and the city, to you and to your colleagues in Santa Fe, we did really well as a community, and it's thanks to all your good efforts. So just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to you all. I'm sorry I can't be down there. I've got unfortunately a meeting. I've got I'm double booked a bit, so I'm trying to balance between the two, but this is really an important group of folks that we meet with every quarter or so. And so I wanted to make sure we did this today. I have just Ed Adams is still our project manager, if you will, for the rail yards and the rail yards redevelopment effort. And so Ed is going to focus a little bit more on the presentation today on the construction side of the house. But Max Gruner is our new economic development director. And this Film Academy, although it was being managed primarily out of my office as it relates to the structure of the lease and the relationship with C&M and the state of New Mexico. But as we got to the end of the program, it's really an economic development tool as well for the city, as I think this will prove to be in the future a major investment in the rail yards and in the Bareilles neighborhood that I think is going to pay dividends for our community for long after many of us are not in sitting in these chairs. At least that would be the goal for sure. Really quickly, as you all obviously heard at this point, the governor announced a pretty significant investment in the development of what's called the New Mexico Media Academy. It is going to be located in the boiler shop area of the rail yards. The investment is approximately $40 million of funds to create this academy. The C&M, as you all know, and the city entered into a memorandum of agreement back over 4.5 years ago to look at how C&M could provide some work for us at the rail yards and really become somewhat of an anchor in terms of the development of those buildings and create a presence so that we could create obviously opportunities, educational opportunities for folks within our city and especially in our community of Bareilles and South Broadway and quite frankly, the downtown area. So in many ways that the work that was announced by the governor really is a culmination of all of our efforts, the mayor meeting with both the state and with the C&M and of course our city councilor, Councilor Benton and all of his colleagues on the council, really all being very supportive of just continuing to make the investment into the rail yards. And so hats off to our senator and legislator, Representative Garcia and others in the legislature. Back 2 years ago, just to give you a perspective, the legislature approved a significant amount of money to be invested into the Film Academy or the film programs in New Mexico in totality. And it was a pretty significant amount of money that was divided up between several communities, Las Cruces and Albuquerque and others throughout the state. The idea here was to look at obviously expanding and growing the film program in New Mexico, or the economy, if you will, in New Mexico. And you all know we've seen a tremendous uptick in Albuquerque alone of the number of films and the opportunities that the film industry is bringing to us with the development of Netflix at Mesa del Sol, which is a significant investment, NBC Studios and many others, the I-25 Studios. So it is a very big and thriving economy of Albuquerque and New Mexico. So all that being said, it became very apparent to us that there could be some synergy between CNM, who by some interest as well, because as they are providing a lot of the technical, if you will, training for a lot of the young people getting into the industry. CNM was also embarking on developing, quite frankly, their own academy, and had already passed a bond through the voters in the CNM service area to actually invest in a new building. So it seemed really appropriate to bring everybody together who had the same idea and put it all together in one area where we could make some investment that is a win-win for everyone. And so we got together with CNM and with the state, and fortunately, all of that came together in a very, I think, a very good package. This represents a $15 million investment from CNM in the rail yards and in the boiler shop, equally matched by the state with another $15 million from the Department of Economic Development to invest their funds. And then an additional $5 million was granted by the governor through their ARPA funds earlier in the year to the city to help us with our match at the local level. And so our match, if you will, from the city is another $5 million to make this into a $40 million investment. Ed will give you a little bit more detail of the actual work inside the boiler shop and what that's going to look like and how that's going to really transform that facility in and of itself. And just to give you all or remind you all, you know, it was again thanks to our legislator in the past and our city council, we did invest a significant amount of money already on the boiler shop by replacing the entire roof structure, putting in a new floor and fixing all the windows on the top of the roof, if you will, the skylights. So that facility has already been, we've had some investment there. And now I think as our friend Jay Remby knows, you know, we really got that building not quite to a cold shell, if you will, which is basically getting it ready for development, but pretty darn close. We brought all the infrastructure in, et cetera. And that's really what made it advantageous for all of us to be able to negotiate this deal with the state and with CNM, in that all the infrastructure to the building is now there on site, and made it advantageous for us to begin to use these dollars to really bring some life and energy into that site. I'm going to conclude my remarks by saying this to all of you, is that the lease agreement includes some a commitment by the state and CNM and the city to work with the neighborhood to continue to provide some educational opportunities for the community, and to have them avail themselves a use of some of those opportunities. The signs and that program still needs to be developed, but we've got some time to do that so that we can ensure that we're supporting the redevelopment of that neighborhood, and that the community gets some benefit from the fact that we've made this investment. The other piece is we're looking at probably anywhere between 150 to maybe 175 students every day once this academy is open, that will be coming to school there 5 days a week and doing filming in the evenings and maybe doing some work on weekends. What it means is it really has now presented a tremendous opportunity to have a presence on the site that is going to help us activate the rest of the site and help us really bring it back to life. I think the one thing I would finish my remarks on, Mr. Chairman, is this. The mayor is really, really concerned, as I know many of you are. We want to make sure that as we develop the yards, that we also put some funding into restoring and preserving the other buildings in that area, and particularly the firehouse. Councillor Benton may talk about his resolution, but we're committed to making sure we stabilize that one building. That building is iconic and it needs a little bit of attention, as well as the others. But that one in particular seems to be deteriorating a little bit faster than we would have expected. And so we are looking at doing some work on that. And look, but the point I was going to make is that we need to make sure that in our interest in developing the yard, and the mayor is very cognizant of that, we've got to make sure we create a space there to celebrate the people of Barelas and the South Broadway area and the community that actually work there, that built their lives around their jobs that were in that area, and really not forget our past. And so I'm working with our folks in our arts and culture department to think about how can we work with the neighborhood and others to really create a historical context, a place where folks can come in and get a little history about the site. Because once we start getting into these redevelopment efforts, a lot of times people forget. And I think that's really super important that we not forget that piece. And then legislators, I know you all put some money in this legislative session to do some work on the south side of the facility to fix up some of the track and some of the work there. And so I know that Leva will want to talk about that. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I know it probably took a little longer than you want, but Max Gruner is available to and has a small little presentation on the agreement, if you will, the MOU between the three governmental entities. And of course, Ed's available to you all to answer any construction questions as the project starts to move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lawrence. I know that you're juggling a couple of meetings here, but so I might just, while you're here, are you going to have to get off of the meeting shortly?
No, I'm going to stay on. I'm going to be on mute and I'll listen so that I don't bother you. But I may have to go up and on the video, but I'll be around. I'll be listening.
Okay, because we do have on the agenda, I'm going to give a CIP update, which is there's not much to update yet because we're still we left a hanging Chad, if you will, the other night. So
I'll be available.
But okay, thanks. All right. So we'll Senator
Lawrence, the press coverage of the academy indicated that other institutions and their students might be able to utilize it too. Is that pretty much guaranteed that UNM and even high school students will be able to access the facility and utilize its resource?
So Senator, Mr. Chairman and Senator Ortiz-Pino, yes, CNM is actually going to be the operator of the actual academy on behalf of the states. So if you can think of this as they're an education institution, they're going to be providing the educational components. The state also announced a director of the academies, if you will. And so they are working together to have other institutions like high school students that want to be involved in, learning about the film industry, or others will be given opportunities to utilize the facilities as a community investment as well. So that's at least what we were informed of by the Secretary Keys, and I think they're still working the particulars of how that works, but that was the intent.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for Lawrence while we have him up there? And so let's hear from Director Gruner, and then we'll hear from Ed.
So good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Max Gruner. It's good to see many of you again. I'm the Director for Economic Development for the city of Albuquerque. Not that I'm counting the days, but this is week number 10 in this position. Previous to that, I was working for the state economic development for Secretary Keys. Part of my portfolio was the Albuquerque, Bernalillo County area. I also wore a secondary hat in that position, and I served the governor as tribal liaison. And in that role, I worked statewide. I have been involved in the media New Mexico Media Academy, or Film Academy, as we originally called it, for about 3.5 years. And I have, as Lauren said, I have a little presentation, and if you give me permission to share my screen, I will run you through a couple of slides. And essentially, I'll be quite honest, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate what Lauren so eloquently just shared, and I'm just going to do it with pretty pictures. But I am not able to share my screen yet. The host has to give me permission to do so.
We're preparing that just now. Mr. Director will have that up.
Yep.
I thought I was a pretty picture there, Max.
You really are.
It's a pretty picture behind you.
So I apologize for the delay, but I'm not able, I get a text box, I don't know whether you can see it, that says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Director Gruner, I just turned it on. You should be able to do it now.
There we go.
So Mr. Chair, could you let me know whether you can see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, we can see it.
Wonderful. So here you have a conceptual rendering of the rail yards leading to what essentially is going to be the New Mexico Media Academy. So the things I wanted to point out is, right, and much of this already exists. You have kind of this majestic walkway that is often activated that will lead you into the Film Academy. Here you see some conceptual renderings of the inside of the academy. One of the things I want to point out, notice that the academy will be functioning on 2 levels. Here's another view of, again, conceptually what the inside might look like. And I'm gonna go back to the first image I had here, and I just want to point out, notice these rooms right here. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah. Yes.
So notice these rooms right in here. You can see some in the back here. So as you all know, the buildings at the rail yard, they are historically significant, and whereas we can restore the outside of the buildings to what they originally were like, we cannot substantively change those buildings. So the architectural term for what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building boxes within the box. And so this is a rendering. This is a little bit dated, as you can see here. This is when we were calling it the Next Generation Media Academy. So this rendering is about 18 months old, but I didn't have a more recent rendering, and I just wanted to show you conceptually what that would look like on the inside. And if you come back here, you can see some of that here. You can see some of that here. Here is a floor plan, and all of this is still a little bit in flux. And I know this is difficult to see, but I'm hoping as I blow this up, you're able to read some of the descriptions of the various locations. So you're going to see production offices here, which essentially is a fancy term of saying it's a room with a high-powered computer. You'll see sound stages here. You'll see classrooms interspersed. And again, I think the thing I really wanted to point out is the idea, the concept, because it's such a big space and it's such a tall space, is that this space is going to be functioning on more than one level. So this is a picture that I am really excited about. When the reality of the Media Academy became obvious to us, and when we were working towards the announcement that many of you attended, we realized that the rail yard in its current condition is a true asset for both the state and the city, right? That industrial look and feel of the rail yard as it is now is important. So what we did is we engaged a drone-based filmmaker, and we captured every angle, every wall, every aspect of the rail yard as it currently is. And I've only attached one of these photos. These are huge files. These are tremendously big files. But essentially, we are gonna create a repository of what the rail yard is today, what it looks like today, so that in 5 years from now, somebody is working on a Terminator movie that's based on, Terminator 2, which was filmed at the rail yard. There is a mechanism for them to use these images as part of their green screen and to continue that legacy. I also just think it's a really pretty photo. It gives you a sense of a turntable back in here. You can see the paint shop over here. It's just really exciting. So look, I've been involved in this project for a while. Depending whether you talk to industry, whether you talk to government, whether you talk to the neighborhood, or whether you talk to academia, everybody has reasons why they're excited about this. And those of you who are on LinkedIn and on Twitter, you probably noticed that the announcement resulted in just a flurry of comments. I mean, people are really, and I don't get to use this term that frequently, but people are really stoked that this is happening. In the world, according to Max, look, there are 3 reasons why I am excited to be involved in this project. Number 1, the rail yard in that part of town is just a really, cool part of town, right? Like it's just a fantastic place to be. And to be involved in the revitalization, it's just really exciting to me. I haven't, so don't quote me on this, I haven't checked these numbers, but I've been told this is the largest investment that we have made in the rail yard in 7 decades. And that's just, right, that's awesome. The second reason why I'm excited about this project is, look, I'm a government bureaucrat. And what that means is I get paid by the acronym. I meet with companies, every day, and I impress those companies by my knowledge of things like LEDA, JTIB, JTA, IRBs, MITCs, and the eyes start rolling back into the head. But here's the truth of the matter. Over the last several years, the first meeting that I have with a company, I don't talk about the financial incentives at all. What I actually do is I bring our educational institutions to the table with me. I bring CNM to the table with me, UNM to the table with me. And the reason for that is, yeah, the companies want to know about the financial incentives, but the real question the companies have is workforce. If I stand up my company here, if I build my factory here, is there a pipeline of trained people that I can depend on to be successful? And so all of the things we do in terms of workforce development are really at the core of what we think of when we talk about economic development, whether it's Q Station, whether it's the accelerators or incubators. And so I am excited because this fits within that vision, right? We're building a professional school for a particular industry so that that industry can be assured of a pipeline of workers in order to be successful. And so the third reason I'm really honing in, look, film and media is one of the areas of tremendous growth. It is so important for the state. It's so important for the city. If you think about film being a twinkle in the eye of Governor Richardson to today, I'll tell you this, the state New Mexico Film Office will go head to head with Georgia and win more often than not, any day of the week. The Albuquerque Film Office will go head to head with Vancouver, any day of the week. And again, we win more often than we don't. And so the opportunity to create a space to have an educational institution, train people, cutting edge, for this industry, I think is absolutely tremendous. You know, I have to be careful about what I say now since my boss is in this meeting also, but the truth is government should not be running the film academy. The state economic development and the state film office has no business running the film academy. My shop at the city and my film office has no business running the film academy. What a privilege to be in an ecosystem where we have an institution like CNM. I mean, I will tell you one thing, and I've done this work all over the country, all over the globe. CNM is world class when it comes to working with industry and creating the kind of training programs that those industries need, whether it's degreed, whether it's certificate programs, whether it's specialized training. And so to have this partnership that Lawrence also mentioned between the city and the state, and then CNM as the operator. If you haven't done so, drive around Albuquerque and go visit some of the CNM workforce centers. I mean, they are top class, and I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's a privilege that we have that resource for us. So nuts and bolts a little bit. As you can well imagine, I don't know whether you all heard, we had a pandemic. Then we had some challenges with supply chain. So these timelines are in flux and have changed. I actually had a slide that I worked on last night that committed to months and years, and I took all of that out. I think what's important about this slide is academic year 25 is when we're going to see those 150, 175 students in the space. Everything else is a backwards extrapolation from this date. The one thing I wanted to point out, those of you who were at the announcement at the rail yard last week, you saw that the founding CEO for the Film Academy was announced, Chad. He's currently in California. We're meeting with him again at the end of the month. And then he is in the process of moving to New Mexico permanently. So again, this date is the important one. All of this is somewhat made up. And then here, again, just reiterating what Lawrence mentioned, it's a huge investment into this asset, into this resource, into this part of the community, 40 million total. And it's broken up into a commitment of up to 15 million by CNM. That is mirrored by a $50 million commitment from the state, and then a $10 million commitment from the city. And that 10 million is constituted by an appropriate $5 million appropriation by the governor, in addition to 5 million from the city. And that is my presentation. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for Director Gruner? Members?
Is it possible for you to send out a copy of what you presented to the board?
Oh,
members?
absolutely. We'll make that presentation available.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Max.
I
Appreciate
have
it.
one question, folks.
Looks like Keith Romero from Brillis.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question. Is the MOU available to the public for review?
Go ahead, Max.
The MOU or the intergovernmental agreement has been executed, and unless Lawrence tells me otherwise, it's part of the public record.
Okay. And then maybe this is a better question for Mr. Rael. He had referenced a lease agreement. Is that separate and apart from the MOU? I take it.
No, it's actually included in the MOU, and it'll be spelled out as well. So when you get the document, you'll have both of those in it. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
sure.
And maybe just to reiterate, there are 3 documents that encapsulate this collaboration between state, city, and CNM. There's a MOU between the 3 parties. There's a lease agreement between the city and CNM, and then there's an operating agreement between the state and CNM. And those three agreements create holistically what this academy stands upon.
Mr. Gruner, have you guys ever thought about adding like a clinic? Have you got like the Lobo Clinic? I'm a big fan of that, adding that something to the rail yard. I think that's a need for that area.
You know, everything is on the table.
What does that
We
mean?
are,
Medical?
because the Film Academy made such a splash, we are being inundated by companies and groups and special interest who would like to co-locate into the rail yard. So, you know, everything is on the table. I will tell you honestly, and you know, I have noticed that whenever I look into my crystal ball, it's getting cloudier by the minute, but many of the companies that we are hearing from are film related or film adjacent, really seeing this as an opportunity to create a campus, to create like an ecosystem for film and media. So my guess would be, you know, 10 years from now, when we get to walk around there, that in places like the Flu Shop and Tender Repair Shop, that you will see other entities that are related to film. But is it thinkable that something completely different might go into those spaces that would really serve the community? Absolutely. I mean, 100%.
All right, any other questions? Sir? Yeah.
I was just gonna make
Yes,
one last comment.
Please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, look, I think the idea, Raul, is quite frankly, once we get this activated, what Max described is accurate, but it may not necessarily all be here at the yards. It may be across the street in some of those vacant lots or along 4th Street, right? I mean, that's really I think the bigger and significant piece of it is that this really creates some synergy and energy in that whole corridor that brings some really much needed resources to that area, like healthcare and retail and restaurants, and it'll activate the whole area. So, but we'll certainly entertain any of those for sure.
Right. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, who's speaking?
Rick.
Oh, Rick.
Rick. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning to everybody. Quickly, on that list, you had a bilingual certificate program. Could you expand on that?
Absolutely. So, you know, one of the values or touchstones that the city of Albuquerque's economic development, but also the states and clearly CNM has is a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we are a profoundly diverse state. And so to make sure that those folks who have a different cultural background, different kinds of language proficiencies, that those folks are able to benefit in an equitable manner from the academy and from access to opportunity that a certificate from the academy would provide. And so that's really what that is based on.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you. I didn't get a complete answer on that one. With the certificate program, that means they're actually giving out the certificate CNM. So are they going to be teaching bilingualism, the accepting part? It's just the way it was written, bilingual certificate program, like that's a separate program.
My wife is part of that program, guys. She works for CNM and UNM, and she works with the high schools for the bilingual certificate and teaching heritage speakers. CNM does a great job on collaborating with the high schools to get this certificate that goes with their high school bilingual seal. So
okay, well that's kind of where I was going, because that is really a whole different thing than they're going to maybe accept it, but they're not going to be doing it, because I'm familiar with the bilingual seal. And that was kind of where I was going. Thank you for that, Ro. It was just, it made it look like they were going to be giving the certificate themselves, but actually they're not in a position to do so, but they will accept it. If I'm correct there, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Representative Mira. Other board members, any questions for Director Bruner? we are on a time schedule here to wrap up by 10, because we have somebody else has dibs on our room here. So let's move to Mr. Adams to give us an update on just some of the work at the yards, and specifically, Ed, and I'll piggyback on your report here. The council did pass a resolution making it a priority to focus on the firehouse, given its prominence on the site and given its somewhat more under more threat from just the environmental issues of deterioration of the building. But so that's been done. That's a policy of the city that, and we've offered, I think, MRA, speaking of Max, the background, you probably know this, but the MRA, Metropolitan Redevelopment Agency, did put up an RFP for, I would say, for some of the less exciting buildings that are right in the area near the firehouse. But the firehouse, just architecturally, is a much more compelling building for possible partnership with private sector on redevelopment. But let's hear from Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The firehouse actually structurally needs a little more help than some of the other buildings in the short term. We are having some failings of the foundation on the northwest corner that need to be addressed, as well as it has the normal asbestos and lead-based paint that some of the other buildings have. So we do look forward in that building taken care of, and at least getting it stabilized while we're trying to figure out what its long-term use might be. So I'm looking forward to getting moving on that with the new funding and in the direction from the council and the administration. So we appreciate that. Going back to C&M, a current status design is underway. We have completed schematic design. SMPC architects were brought on board by C&M. C&M is the project lead for this next phase. Obviously, the city's got a seat at the table as well as the state does. So currently, we are out for RFP for our construction manager at risk, which is the construction method that this project is going to utilize. We will be scoring the first round of proposals by the contractor tomorrow. Okay, so we are moving forward with that. We would anticipate interviews of the shortlisted contractors probably in May, sometime in May. We would anticipate late June, early July, we should have our contractor under contract and a seat at the table through the design process. This is one of the benefits of CMR, is you have the contractor at the table working with the design team in helping us make informed decisions and giving us value engineering inputs of ways and methods that we can utilize to construct the project, as well as to do it more efficiently and more cost effective. So I'm very pleased that we're using this particular delivery system. Looking forward to that moving along. As you saw from some of the graphics that were put up on the board, some of the renderings are pretty spectacular. Some of the block buildings are located a little bit differently now than what we saw in that picture. But basically on the north side of the boiler would be some classrooms on the first floor and some offices on the second floor. So we are intending to have a two-story building inside the boiler shop. There's basically two banks of buildings, if you will, one on the north half of the building and then one on the south. The ceiling on the south half of the building is higher. It is 60 feet high. So some of the sound stages are going to be on the south side because they have a much higher ceiling capacity for lighting and other things. So it makes perfect sense to put those spaces on the south side. There's also going to be some kind of theater structures there where you can actually show the films, audiences, seating arrangements. One of the pictures you saw was kind of the main entrance. So it's anticipated right now, the main entrance right out of the courtyard, straight into the double doors that we're using right now. And that area there is going to be open air all the way to the natural ceiling. The other buildings will be enclosed and buildings within the building. There will be some workspaces on the very far west side that will be open air all the way to the ceiling, but those would be for set manufacturing and construction type things for inside the sound stages. So we're kind of moving along. I'm pleased. Obviously, $40 million is a fair amount of money. It's probably a little easier to spend than you might think. So, obviously, we're going to have scope adjustment as we go through the design process and we start developing our costs and getting inputs from our contractor that's on board of actual costs. So there's going to be some adjustments. Can't say what they are yet, but they will avail themselves in the not too distant future. I'm pleased that things are moving along there, and Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
All right, questions from the board members?
That was easy, thank you. Hopefully we saved you some time.
Dorothy.
You said you're doing the RFPs and such like that. I thought there was supposed to be an inclusion of that we are on that board of the decision makers of the RFPs.
Okay, the things that have gone out, C&M has solicited SMPC architects for design. And then right now they're out soliciting construction contractors.
Okay, so C&M is the one that's doing it.
And C&M is taking the lead on this. It's primarily their facility. They are also representing the state in this project as well. So those two issues are initiated by C&M.
So contractually, C&M will still be a lessor?
Yes, so they're taking the lead on the development of the project. The city has a seat at the table on the design team and so we're involved in the design and the construction. C&M is taking the lead, and then they're going to manage the facility when it is operated.
And as Director Gruner said, the exterior, of course, will be completely respected as to the
Absolutely.
Of the exterior.
All of anything that we propose to do to the site still has to go through SHPO and SHPO review. So, and we've got, the city has a historical officer she's been involved. We've gone through most of these kinds of things previously. The boiler has been cleaned up already. I mean, we have, besides the new foundation and the new roof, we've cleaned up a lot of the things internally that needed to be removed. Any of the old utility lines and things that you see in the building are because the SHPO wanted those to remain.
Right.
Okay. So we're not planning on really changing that. We do have lead-based paint on all of the superstructure. That's going to have to be dealt with most likely by encapsulation. And we still have the asbestos putty in the windows. It's about 3% asbestos. 1% asbestos is allowable. Obviously, there's more than one. So we will be taking care of those and replacing the glazing, external glazing. We are not anticipating on rearranging any of the framework for the windows. Some of them may need to be improved. Some of them have got some rust and some degradation that we would take care of. There's some infill brick, like 1960 vintage brick cutouts. There's a good chance that those will go away and we'll put window framing back in like it was originally. So yes, the exterior appearance of the building is going to remain as it was originally built.
Leba?
I think the design is excellent. I love that you're leaving the open space. I think it's beautiful what you're doing. I'm curious, excuse me, do we know the length of the lease? And do we know, excuse me, what is the cost of the lease?
Mr. Chairman, these are government to government, if you will. I would say it's a memorandum of agreement, understanding it's $1 a year.
Okay.
To the state and to C&M because of their incredible investment in the project.
Sure. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it's a 30-year lease or 30-year use of the site with options to for another 15 for 2 additional 15-year options.
Thank you.
Really, yeah. So I think the one thing though to our to the neighborhood's interest, I think in having them review And I might recommend that when you all get a chance, it would be helpful for CNN to have maybe a little bit of an open house for the community just to come and see the renderings and the designs. Most of the exterior, as I think Ed described for everybody, is going to pretty much remain the same. It's just think about it as brand new glass and new trimmings around the square of the boiler shop, if you will, because everything happens inside. Where there is going to be a need for community input, at least for you all's involvement, is going to be the landscaping and the entrance and the restructuring, because that does face the community. And it's pretty much in line with what we've presented before when we talked about all the work that we did along 2nd Street with the redesign of the landscaping and the streetscape. All of that will continue to stay, but there will be some restructuring a little bit in terms of the intersection of 2nd and 1st Street, where we'll put that, if you will, that new roundabout and create a major entrance between the firehouse and the pattern house right through there as a main entrance. So we'll get some time for the neighborhood to sit and look at that. And of course, Leva, you're next door, so I think it'd be good to have your folks just have at least a look-see. And obviously anybody who wants to be on this board, who wants to be invited, we'll get you into that meeting for sure.
Thank you.
Senator.
Just to go back to the firehouse for a second, the city council made that a priority to stabilize it.
Yeah.
Did they actually appropriate enough money to do that, or is that still in the future? And how much is it going to take?
We're in the middle of our capital budget right now, and of course, the line item in the capital budget just says rail yards. But as far as I'm concerned, that could partly go towards this. I'm not sure how much of this $5 million commitment of the cities, but maybe that's a question for CAO or IL, would be from the current the CIP budget that's currently being considered by the council.
And I bring that up because it's not too early to start planning for the next legislative session, and we should have plenty of capital outlay money next year as well. So
yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have that be a focus project. We've had criticism from folks present here in the room, and I won't name anyone, but I agree with them who have said that we haven't been specific enough about what our requests are at the legislature. And the city says generally is, for the rail yards and so forth. And we appreciate, in fact, the capital outlay that has been provided to the site, including restoration of the turntable and some of Liba's lobbying efforts. So that's all great. But Lawrence, what about that? I mean,
Sure.
The intent of the council, of course, is that we put some focus on the firehouse. I understand what Ed is saying about getting a foundation remediation, and that's although it's messy work, it's fairly straightforward work as far as I know, as far as remedying that. But then how far are we from being able to say we have a project there? And to make everyone clear, again, this would just be to make it a cold, dry box so that we could then put it out for an RFP. And that would be a place where the neighborhood would certainly be part of that RFP for a metropolitan redevelopment project.
So, Mr. Chairman, and just so you'll know, yes, we have some funding available. What I've asked Ed to do is to do an analysis of maybe 3 basic areas. One is the structural issues, as he mentioned, that the building is sinking a little bit, to see what needs to be done to shore that up so that we eliminate or at least, adjust that issue and make sure that it doesn't create bigger issues for the building itself structurally. The other piece is to look at the exterior of the building, all of the wood and all the wood that's around that building that needs to be redone and or preserved, because if not, by the time we get to it, it's going to be even more challenging to fix. The other piece is the environmental issues inside the building, which is really one that we probably have to have a longer conversation about. Here's the challenge. The challenge is that, as Ed said, if you can abate some of these things by simply covering it up. For example, you can put sheetrock over the lead-based paint behind the walls, and as long as you don't mess with the walls, you can pretty much encapsulate it and not have to do a lot of work to it. However, that means that we're all going to be committed to the same rooms and the same structure internally, which may not always be what someone who wants to move in wants to see. If you can imagine this, it's got rooms upstairs that are pretty small. If we encapsulate that lead-based paint there, then those rooms will look nice, but they may not be functional for, say, if somebody wants to put a some kind of a coffee shop or something else where they want to move the walls. So those are some of the kind of give and takes that we've got to have in the conversation. But I do think the most important part is the exterior rehab around it so that it stays intact, that we do the foundation work and that we do the roof repair so that the exterior stays in shape. And then as we look through an RFP process to see who would want to use it, then we might come in and decide what needs to happen internally to make it more functional. So Councilor, to answer your question, we have some funds to do all the assessment, and I think we have enough money to do the shoring up exterior on the structural sinking, if you will, and the windows. All of that will hopefully get us to our next legislative session where we may need to have additional funds to fix the roof, Senator Pino, and do some other. There's one other major issue with that building, that if it is going to be used in a public way, it needs an elevator. It doesn't have any kind of a way to get folks from one floor to the other than the stairwell. So there's some of those things that, you know, it's just an older building and it didn't have those things in the past. So a lot of that needs to be done, but we'll get that for sure, Councilor Benton, to you here within the next 45 days or so, and be able to start presenting the plan on getting that facility shored up. And then the last piece I would say is that we did do an RFP some time ago. We had a lot of interest on a lot of folks, but you know, unfortunately, it was before we announced the CNM project. I'm just going to tell you, I think if we put it out for an RFP now, knowing that this is coming, there is going to be a lot more interest, I think, from a retail and community and other assets that might go there, or if you will, other investments. And I think that's where I'm extremely sensitive, Councilor, and I think you are too. I want to just make sure that the neighborhood is involved with that piece of it. I don't want to see something and some use there that then becomes a challenge for the neighborhood. You know, one thing is to get a major investment like this one with the rail yards with the academy. The other piece is to make sure that whatever else comes around it is equally as supportive of that work, but also creates some value for the neighborhood. And those buildings along 2nd Street really present that opportunity for the city. So anyway, with that, that's where we are, Councilor. And just so you'll know, we're asking in the CIP for $3 million from the council to help with that. You know, I'm going to let the councilor talk a little bit about the process. And Councilor, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to run to my other meeting, but I just want to let you know the mayor is extremely supportive of the redevelopment of this yard and this project, and extremely thankful to our legislators for all your support in getting this done, and quite frankly to this group for being supportive and helping us move forward.
Thank you, Lawrence. And yeah, just really quickly, put my architect hat back on. You know, these kind of improvements that we're talking about, especially on the interior stuff, it's common for those to be borne by the proposer. You know, things like, okay, tearing out the walls, even things on the interior like asbestos remediation is, you know, it's really not rocket science anymore, and they know how to do it. And that would, you know, that would be negotiated, but that may or may not be part of the lessor's responsibility to take care of on the interior, and maybe even an elevator, although adding an elevator would make it much more marketable. And maybe that's something we need to do on the public side as offering the building. So Ed,
Councilor, to address the elevator, there is a stairwell, literally, it's this wide. It's that one.
It's a small building.
We,
Great building.
as Lawrence said, he's asked me to look into this and start developing some drawings, some construction documents to address this, which we have done. We've looked at an elevator, probably external.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we don't have appropriate bathrooms on the first floor. either.
Sure.
So we're probably looking at some type of bathroom elevator addition
Mhm.
to the exterior of the building in order to make it ADA compliant and a more usable shell. The package that we're looking at doesn't address some of the interior things like Lawrence told you. There's no reason to go in and abate the lead-based paint until we know who the tenant is and what they're planning on doing.
Mhm.
The rest of the green paint that you see on the window frames, lead-based paint.
Mhm.
We need to take care of that. Asbestos in the roof. We'll take care of that with the roof. So we will be moving forward hopefully pretty soon. We'll have a package for you, as Lawrence said. We'll have something for you in 45 days to take a look at for stabilizing the building and addressing some of the critical needs. It's not a heated shell.
Mhm.
But it does give us a platform that we could choose to go out to RFP if we wanted to.
Okay, well, I like what Lawrence said about trying to proceed with the idea of really having a discrete request to the legislature next time around.
Mr. Chair, for Ed, in the academy, we're bringing more people onto the site. How is that reflected in terms of the parking plan? And also, in regards to the renderings, some of the drawings, I noticed kind of like solar panels up on the roof. So how are we kind of creating the self-sufficiency in terms of the utilities for the academy? And in that, how are we looking at the runoff in terms of recycling runoff onto the site in terms of landscaping or whatever? So how are we dealing with these kind of environmental friendly initiatives coming off of the completed academy once it's completed?
Right now, we have a stormwater pre-treatment area on the property. It's already there. It is in a landscaping. It's beautiful. If you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't even know. But the parking lot drains into this area and it captures any of the oils or any of the what material like that would wash off the asphalt. So that's already there and there's plant material in there and it does hold water and it's a pre-treatment. All of the stormwater is already connected to stormwater system that's in Second Street. So that's all done. On the roof of the boiler shop, all of the water is captured in a collection system. There are down leaders that are already tied into the storm drain system. So water that falls on top of the boiler shop never touches the ground. It is collected, it goes underground, and it goes out into our storm drain system. So that part's taken care of. Solar panels. Solar panels are permissible by statute on historic properties. So that's not an argument that we have to have with the SHPO. So if we choose to put solar panels on our buildings, it is permissible and we just have to work with them on how to do that. The roof material on the boiler is TPO. We got the SHPO to agree to that, even though that's not historic, but it is a much better roof system. And we got them to agree to the color gray, which is consistent with the color of the roof. Okay. You had the parking lot. The agreement has, I think, 150 spaces identified for non-exclusive use for C&M. The parking lot currently has 195 or 198 spaces striped. Probably has room for another 15 or 20, should we wish to increase it in the pavement that we already have on the north side. Obviously, depending on what happens on the south side, that may or may not include some additional parking availability on the south side. There's a lot of space there. But right now, we believe we are adequately parked or have parking for what's proposed.
And Mr. Chair, on the parking, wouldn't it be more feasible instead of looking for more area, kind of focusing in terms of a garage style parking? Would that be allowable on the site?
most likely, I think structured parking would be permissible. One thing you have to kind of keep in mind, and this is probably dated. Structured parking is probably minimum of $20,000 a space.
A parking space?
Yeah, it's a mind-boggling number, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I think that's an old number too, from what I
No, that's what I said. I think this is a dated number.
might be more like 30 now.
Yeah, because that's always gonna be an issue is the
Yeah.
parking.
Yeah.
And if we bring more people to the site,
Mhm.
we're gonna have that spillover onto the neighborhoods. And
We've
so
looked
I
at a
think the
number of,
parking has to be kind of a priority look.
Mhm.
When we're looking at phasing in these developments on the site. And maybe the parking garage would be kind of a thing to look at, appropriate funding. Or set aside funding based on the expense of creating that type of system.
The master plan does anticipate that
Uh,
where the surface parking is now. At some point. Leva,
Listening to the discussion today, I think there's a big elephant in the room we haven't discussed, and that's the machine shop. There's all kinds of talk about retail and other kinds of things going on. And I think after doing this for almost 30 years, and many of us for almost that long, we need to remember the importance of this site historically. The mayor has said that the Wheels Museum can have the machine shop, as Lawrence Real has also told us we're going to be in the machine shop. I do want to say that we went to speak to Melanie Stansberry's staff last week, and they are going to give us the grant writer for the federal congressional delegation towards this end. We've been working with city and state towards this end, and I'm just begging you to remember why we're here. I think film, in fact, I'm the person who started film on the rail yards. No one knows that or remembers it probably, but I did. I think it's very interesting what's happening there, but I'm begging you to remember that the site is for our people and our history. We just completed another study at Wheels about every person who has worked at the rail yards. We have great detail about that, thousands of pictures. Wheels is very successful. 2926 is working to be in the machine shop and be on the site. We're working with other rail groups and rail museums. And we did get money from the legislature for repair of the turntable and for track. So I'm hoping that my life will have been spent doing our main purpose, which is the history of this property, along with economic development. So that's where we are on that. Thank you.
thank you. And we've got 10 minutes left in this room, so we probably need to wrap it up, but we just want to open it up to any other questions from the board members. Eddie?
Is the academy going to be a Monday to Friday venture?
I couldn't hear you.
Or the hour's going to be a Monday through Friday.
Oh, no.
The only reason I ask
Sure not.
is it conflict with the market?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
actually.
true. I mean, I think with the, I would just, yes, but I would imagine for any educational institution, there's gonna be a certain amount of activity on a weekend, but probably not the bulk of it.
Mr. Chairman, that'd be correct. They're actually encouraged to have some Saturday open house kinds of things for the community and to come into the site and for potential new students and things like that. They're completely aware of the Sunday need for the market and the parking for the market. So I'm not anticipating much in the way of activity from CNN and the Film Academy on Sunday. On Saturday, I think there's some. Most of the use is going to be the normal Monday through Friday. Doesn't mean that they don't have open houses or have some of the studios opened where the public can come in and see. But mostly Monday through Friday.
And you know, recognizing the need for parking, but on this type of the site, it's pretty common to say that it's a shared parking situation, and you program according to that. Also, just a word of caution, you know, you build it and they will come. The more parking spaces you build, the more cars you're gonna have on the site. So I think we also need to keep in mind and keep in the forefront of our minds alternative ways of getting to this site.
What about bicycle parking, more of a healthier format of living?
Thank you, sir. Please recognize the chair if you'd like to speak, but we are running out of time here. The situation is that that and has been, and I think it's recognized in the master plan that's being approved or before the EPC right now, is that that if that shall be a consideration, along with recognizing that some people are going to drive to the site no matter what. And we've got to minimize the impact on the neighborhoods. And that's why the master plan does speak to, as was said, cycling, pedestrian, and then maybe even people mover type service going into the future. We do have to clear out this room, but we do have an announcement from Mr. Roberts from the New Mexico Steam Locomotive and Railroad Historical Society. Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you. I'll make this as brief as possible. First off, we're doing a name change. We're working towards New Mexico Heritage Rail, so you'll start hearing those name eventually. Secondly, I'd like to thank those that came to our advisory board open house last week or whenever it was to see and learn about us. I appreciate that. As Mr. Ayal has pointed out, Wheels Museum did get capital outlay funds for their building and their adjacent tracks. Lebo spoke just a moment ago. The society is the ones that got capital outlay funds for the turntable. We are making continued measured progress on the turntable. We're also planning and budgeting the funds that we are expecting. And finally, unless these plans fall apart completely, we'll be making a trip outside of our restoration site on the Sawmill Spur in the middle of the month. So just so you all know.
How far are you going to go?
We have permission to go to 4th Street. So
Wow.
we're trying to do a fundraiser in collaboration with Tractor Brewing. So
yeah, it's really exciting. If you haven't seen the locomotive and you didn't get a chance to see it this time, I encourage everyone to go see it next time they have an open house. Our next regularly scheduled meeting is August 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Please put that on your schedule, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. And we'll make sure that we get Max's PowerPoint out to everybody on the board.
Can I just make one comment?
Yes, Dorothy.
I was kind of blown away because we didn't know anything about the announcement on Wednesday, or we didn't receive any invitation, heads up, nothing. I know it's the state run, so I understand it's not the city's fault, but it would be nice in the future to let us know that. At least the Rail Yard Advisory Board should have been informed, because I know Eddie wasn't, Lebo wasn't, and I wasn't. And that kind of, I had to hear about it secondhand, like days later, kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, I'm not against, I'm not against the film, because I think production there, work on the side is great, but it's just kind of nice to be informed.
Absolutely, and point well taken. And I only knew about it the day before myself, so otherwise we would have made an effort on my office to do that. But I think point well taken, and we need to make sure that you guys are right on top of that. Of course, I'm excited because I think the first signing of something between the mayor and CNM was 6 years ago now. And so it's nice to see it really coming together. So we appreciate everybody's being
I
here.
expect to see this happen in my lifetime, but it's starting to happen, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I think, the streets and the improvements that we're doing in the surrounding area, we hope that those all will continue and strongly support them. So
Also, just a heads up, there's a proposed development going to happen on Santa Fe between 2nd and 3rd. So that's also going to take the parking spaces there. So that's going to also be a concern there, because I know the neighborhood's already up in arms about that. So, just kind of
aware of that, and that's I haven't been briefed on what that is exactly going to look like, but we do need to be
we just got,
cognizant.
it's going to be housing, apartments, multifamily, single family, studio apartments, along with retail, micro retail on the bottom. And it's actually done by Chad Radiger, who did Sawmill on the bottom, and So, I mean, I'm hoping, I know this is something you've asked for like 15 years ago, but.
Yeah.
But it's hopefully happening soon.
Thank you. We're going to have to get out of the room, but thanks everybody for being here and we'll see you in August and hopefully soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Levi, I do remember you starting this whole process.
Yes, thank you.